All right. So photosynthesis is the process where the plant prepares its own food. For whom does it prepare the food? Mainly for itself. Okay, it's preparing food for itself. But then it prepares a lot of food and the plant doesn't need so much food. So that's why it stays within the plant and then we can get that food by eating the plant. Okay. Yes. So what does it use for this process? What are the raw materials? Okay, sunlight is needed. What else?
Like carbon
Water.
dioxide, water,
Okay, water is from where does the plant get the water?
soil, from the roots.
Soil. The roots absorb water. Then what's the second raw
Yes.
material?
Carbon
Carbon
dioxide
dioxide. From where does the plant get the carbon dioxide?
from the atmosphere.
From the atmosphere. The leaves absorb carbon dioxide, right? So leaves absorb carbon dioxide and roots absorb the water. And these two raw materials go where? They
Into
go
the
to
leaves.
leaves. Leaves are the kitchen.
Also.
Some people, somewhere it says that we should not call leaves as the kitchen because in the kitchen we prepare, like there was something that we should not say that. Anyway, okay, we can call leaves as the kitchen of the tree because the plants, because that's where the food is prepared. Okay, and the two things that are required. One is sunlight. One more thing? No, that's it.
Chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll, yes. Chlorophyll is what? It's a green color pigment present in the plant. Mostly it's found in the leaves and the young stems. All right, so this produces two products. What are the two products?
Glucose and oxygen.
So that is glucose C6H12O6 and oxygen. So the glucose is used by the plant and most of it is staying in the plant in the form of, what does this glucose get converted into? It doesn't stay in the form of glucose. It gets converted to another form and then it is stored. Starch. Okay, so it's stored in the plant. Where is it stored? Hmm? Where is this food stored? Food. What is it? Fruits. Okay, the food is stored in the fruits and vegetables. That's why we eat the fruits and vegetables so that we get that food, right? It's also stored everywhere else in the plant. Like in the whole plant, there is this parenchyma cells. Food is stored in the parenchyma cells. Okay, that's present everywhere throughout the plant. It's in the leaf, it's in the stem. That's why we can eat stems, we can eat leaves. Yes, we don't? Yes? Methi, palak, what is that? Leaves, no? We're eating leaves. Stems also have, but stem is too hard, so we can't eat. Okay, but there are some plants where you can eat the stems also. Banana plant, you can almost eat the whole plant. Okay, so food is stored everywhere in the plant. So that is the first importance of photosynthesis. It is food for all. Who's the all? The plant and animals, all living things, plants and animals. And second thing is it gives out oxygen. Okay, how is this oxygen given out? Is the same way the carbon dioxide is taken in through the same opening. What is that opening called? Stomata. So that's like the nose, right? Through the stomata, carbon dioxide comes in and oxygen goes out. Okay, this reaction is actually not complete. There's also an H2O over here. Okay, it's not the same H2O here. This H2O in the reactant is broken down and produced again. New H2O is produced. That water is also released through the stomata. Not this water. See, like we have learned in transpiration that how much of the water absorbed is thrown outside. What percentage of the water absorbed by the roots is simply thrown outside?
98.
98%. Okay, so that is not this water. This water is what is used for photosynthesis and it gives out some water. This water that's used for photosynthesis is just 2% of the total water absorbed. Okay, 98% is not even used for photosynthesis. It is simply thrown outside. Okay, and the water that we get here is from this 2% itself. That is also excess water, which is not needed. It is used or thrown outside, whatever. Okay. But this 98% for sure it is not used at all for photosynthesis. Yeah, so these are the two important things given out by the plant, that is food and oxygen. Okay, now where is this chlorophyll present? Where exactly
Thylakoid.
in the cell? Where?
Thylakoids.
Thallophytes. What did you say? Hey,
Mesophil cells, I think. Mesophil cells, something.
Thylakoids.
You guys put a camera on and speak. I can't hear you properly. I can't see you. I don't understand what you're saying. Okay. Where is this thylakoids? Huh? See, there is something called plastids. This plastid is inside the cell. Inside the cell, there are plastids, and there are three types of plastids. What are the three types of plastids? Chloroplast, chromoplast, and leucoplast. Okay. Now, from this, one of the plastid is chloroplast. That chloroplast has the green pigment. So how does a chloroplast look? This is a picture of a chloroplast. Okay, they have opened it. Inside the chloroplast, the ground substance, the liquid, semi-liquid substance throughout the whole chloroplast is something called stroma, the ground fluid. In the stroma, there is this sac, a flat sac. They're called thylakoids. Now, when you put so many thylakoids one on top of the other, you get a stack of thylakoids that is called granum. So granum is one stack. Now, plural of granum is grana. Means one granum, 5 grana. Okay, so there are many grana here. And these grana are all connected to each other with something called fret. Okay, so what is this diagram of? What's this full thing? Plastid. Which plastid is this? It's the chloroplast. There are three types of plastids. We are studying only about one plastid, which is the chloroplast. So chloroplast has this ground substance, ground fluid, which is called the stroma. These flattened stacks called thylakoids. And the group of the whole stack together is called granum. And plural of granum is grana. The grana are connected to each other with these bars, the interconnecting bars called fret. Okay. Now, where is the green pigment? The pigment chlorophyll is contained in the walls of the thylakoids. These flattened sacs, on the walls of the thylakoid is the chlorophyll. Now, where is this? Like, this is a leaf. Where do you find more chlorophyll? In the upper part of the leaf or the lower part of the leaf?
Upper part of the leaf.
Upper part. Why? Why does it make sense to have more chloroplast in the upper part of the leaf? Because sunlight falls on the upper part of the leaf. And only
Yes.
chlorophyll and sunlight together, they work together to form for photosynthesis, right? So chloroplasts are mainly contained in the mesophyll cells located between the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis. That is palisade cells and spongy leaves of. See, we have the structure of a leaf here. This is the structure of the leaf. Okay. So you can see this whole cell, all the cells together between the upper and lower epidermis is the mesophyll cells. Mesophyll cells, there are two types. Upper cells are called palisade cells and the lower cells are called spongy cells. So where do we find it? In the mesophyll cells or spongy cells? Where do, no, sorry. Mesophyll is the whole. So in the mesophyll cells, that is both palisade and spongy. Upper both have chloroplasts, but more of it will be in the upper layers. You also find chloroplasts in the guard cells. See, this is the guard cell, right? The guard cell is the what controls whether the stomata opens or not. So guard cells also have chlorophyll in them, chloroplasts. Look at this. There may be more than 5 lakh chloroplasts per square millimeter of a leaf surface. Square millimeter. In that small gap, 1 square millimeter, you can have 5 lakh chloroplasts. Okay. So very small structures. Now there are there are 9 types of chlorophyll, but the most abundant is chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. That's what yeah, I'm not studying about each of them separately, but just know that the 2 most abundant chlorophylls are A and B. If something is green in color, is it because it absorbs green color light or it reflects green color light? See, this light is white, okay? And say we have a leaf and the leaf is green. Why is the leaf green? Is it absorbing the full white light, or is it absorbing only the green part of the light, or is it reflecting only the green part of the light?
It is not absorbing full white light.
Reflecting green light.
Okay, so white light is made up of RGB, red, green, blue, or red, yellow, blue. Okay, it depends how we look at it. So if a leaf is green in color, it is because it is absorbing the red and the blue, but reflecting the green. So chlorophyll absorbs which color light? Red and blue. Okay, it's only capable of absorbing red color and blue color light. It is not able to absorb the green color light. That's why it is green, because it is reflecting the green. Is that clear, everyone? Why is your shirt white? What is it doing to the white light? Is it absorbing white light or reflecting the white light? It's reflecting the white light, means it's not absorbing anything. That's why you feel cool in a white shirt, because it does not absorb the light. It reflects every light. And what if you wear black shirt?
Will
It
absorb
absorbs
every light.
every light. It absorbs all the colors and does not reflect anything. That's why it's looking black, because no light is getting reflected. Okay, if a shirt is red in color, why is it red? Because it reflects red and it absorbs green and blue. Green and blue it takes in, reflects out red. Okay. All right. So light is necessary for photosynthesis to take place. But you see, too much light destroys chlorophyll. Okay, chlorophyll is very sensitive to light. So there's too much light, it can get destroyed. And if there's too less light, also chlorophyll gets destroyed. Both ways it'll get destroyed if there's too much light or too less light. If a grass is growing under shade, throughout shade, no light at all is falling on the grass, the chlorophyll in that grass will get destroyed. The green color chlorophyll will turn into yellowish color. Beta, the grass growing in the shade under a stone turns yellowish due to the non-formation of new chlorophyll and due to the disintegration of the older one in the absence of light. Old chlorophyll dies and no new chlorophyll is formed. Okay. Now, the regulation of stomatal opening for letting in carbon dioxide. I think I had explained this topic to you sometime, K plus ion concentration theory and the sugar concentration theory. When did I explain this? Why did I explain this? You didn't have this for your previous exam, right?
No, sir.
No.
But why did I explain this?
You just go through the topics and you told this is that, and little bit of you explained.
Which exam? First time you didn't have
They
this.
told no.
We thought
They told that
Okay. All right. So they said you'll have the chapter, then they canceled it. Okay. So we had learned this. Let me again explain it. So how does a stomata open in the daytime and close in the nighttime? Okay, so scientists have been studying and figuring out why this happens. Why in the daytime the stomata opens, why in the nighttime it closes. Now, when the stomata opens, what all is passing through the stomata, first of all? What is going into the plant?
carbon dioxide,
Carbon dioxide is going in. What is coming out?
oxygen, water.
Oxygen and water vapor. Okay, one thing going inside, two things coming out. Okay, now this tomato opens only in the daytime when there is sunlight. So only in the daytime this things can happen. That is, carbon dioxide goes in, oxygen comes out, water vapor comes out. In the night, stomata closes and no transfer of gases, no water vapor comes out. It's all shut. Okay, So the question, how does it open and close? The old theory was called the sugar concentration theory. In the sugar concentration theory, in the daytime, there is sunlight, so there is photosynthesis. And when there's photosynthesis, what is produced? Glucose. So the stomata gets filled with glucose. And when there's high concentration of glucose, endosmosis takes place. That means water from the surrounding cells will enter into the guard cells and make it turgid. When it gets turgid, it opens. This was the sugar concentration theory. So again, how is it? Daytime photosynthesis takes place that produces glucose inside the guard cells. High concentration of glucose causes endosmosis to take place. That means water enters into the guard cells and that makes it turgid, and that's how it opens. In the night, there is no photosynthesis, so there's no sugar, no high concentration of sugar, so the water from inside will leak outside.
So,
And
but at the night time, no higher concentration of glucose, no?
no, it's just all even. Everywhere it is even. Because there's no photosynthesis taking place, so there's equal amount of glucose everywhere in every cell. And so if there's too much water inside, it just leaks outside. Because there's high pressure of water inside, no, it just leaks outside. Okay, that was the old theory, which makes absolute sense. But then they came up with this new theory because they found out that this might be the right thing that's happening. So in the daytime, there is again photosynthesis, and because of photosynthesis, there is respiration, and respiration produces energy. That energy is used to pump potassium ions into the guard cells. Okay, so it's a little here and there. How is it? In the daytime, there is photosynthesis, which leads to higher respiration, which leads to production of energy. And that energy is used for what? To actively pump potassium ions from the adjacent cells into the guard cells. So their energy is called ATP, right? ATP is the energy currency of the cell. So this K plus ion is pumped into the guard cells, and that makes the guard cells hypertonic. Just like how before the sugar made it hypertonic, now what is making the guard cell hypertonic? The K plus ions. And because it's hypertonic, endosmosis takes place. Is that clear, everyone? In the nighttime, the reverse happens. That is, no photosynthesis, no energy is produced, and so the K plus ions will just leak outside. Just like how in the previous theory, how the glucose leaked outside, here the potassium ions will just leak out and lose its turgidity. Is that clear, everyone? The two theories? Okay, let's just answer these questions. Yes or no? All parts of green plant carry out photosynthesis. All parts of a green plant. Okay, the question is confusing. All green parts or all parts of a green plant? So wherever it's green, photosynthesis will take place. So if they're saying it's a green plant, means the whole plant is green. Is that what it means? Or only certain parts are green? Okay, it's a confusing question, but wherever the plant is green, photosynthesis will take place. Whether it is a leaf or the stem or any part of the plant which is green, photosynthesis will take there. Okay, so that's a confusing question. Okay, so maybe what they mean is a green plant is not green everywhere. A green plant means what? A living plant. So now tell me, do all parts of a living green plant carry out photosynthesis? No, only the green parts. Now look at the second question. All green parts of a plant carry out photosynthesis. Okay, that is yes. Next, photosynthesis is the only biological process that releases oxygen into the air. Is there any other way by which oxygen is produced? No. Plants are the only source of oxygen. There's no other way oxygen can be produced. What is the source of carbon dioxide? Who produces carbon dioxide? Animals. When we respire, we breathe out carbon dioxide. Is there any other way carbon dioxide is produced? No. We just studied chemistry. In there itself, we saw two reactions where carbon dioxide is produced. When? burning anything, any fuel, petrol, wood, coal, anything if you burn, it produces carbon dioxide. In our reaction, we had acetylene and methane. We saw that both of them produced carbon dioxide. Do you remember the reactions? 1 hour ago we did. So any burning, anything you burn produces carbon dioxide. Whether it's your kitchen stove that's burning to cook food, carbon dioxide is released. Whether it's a forest fire where trees are being burned, carbon dioxide is released. Okay. So there are many sources of carbon dioxide, but there's only one source of oxygen, that is plants. Again, the opposite also. Many sources of carbon dioxide, and who has to absorb all this carbon dioxide? Plants. And plants convert all that carbon dioxide into oxygen. Out of 9 types of chlorophyll, chlorophyll A and B are the most abundant. Too much light destroys chlorophyll. What, Leah? Sleepy? Okay. No transpiration occurs during photosynthesis. Yes or no?
No.
Yeah. During photosynthesis, only stomata open and transpiration occurs that time. So when there's photosynthesis, there is transpiration. This is no. During sunlight, the guard cells turn flaccid to open the stomata. No, it becomes turgid to open the stomata. Okay. All right. So we'll stop with that. Next, you have process of photosynthesis, which is very important topic over here. That's the main topic in this chapter. After that, you just have some experiments and carbon cycle. Okay. All right. So we'll stop with this. Please study whatever is taught today. Okay. Okay, last time in biology, we learned about the K plus ion concentration theory and the sugar concentration theory. These are two theories on what? About how the stomata opens and closes. There are two techniques, the old method, which was the sugar concentration theory, and the K plus ion concentration theory is the newer theory that they've come up with. Okay. Okay, anyway, so we are seeing the process of photosynthesis. Like, so first let's look at the reaction, the photosynthesis reaction. What is a chemical reaction in photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll produces glucose, water, and glucose, oxygen, and water. Okay, so it's not the same water that is coming over here. Okay, the water is broken down and the new water is being formed on the other side. So this is a complete reaction. Now if you balance it, okay, what is it? If you balance, so everywhere you put a 6. Here is, this is already multiples of 6. This oxygen you have to put 6. Water has to be 12 here and 6 over here, because some of the water is used up for producing the glucose. Remaining water is over here. Okay, so this is the balanced reaction for this. So yeah, some things that you already know. Carbon dioxide. How does the plant get the carbon dioxide? How does it enter into the plant? Through the stomata, right? Stomata opens only in the daytime. That's the time carbon dioxide enters into the plant. Next, water. When does a plant get water? How does it get water? Is through the roots. When does this happen? It's actually happening day and night. Okay, but the thing is, in the daytime only there is transpiration pull, and so water can go up till the leaves only in the daytime. In the nighttime, there is no transpiration pull because stomata is closed, and so there is no water going up to the leaves. So basically, this process only happens in the daytime. Right? Photosynthesis takes place in the daytime. Carbon dioxide gets in the plant only in the daytime. Water goes up to the leaf only in the daytime. Sunlight is present only in the daytime. Right? So this reaction only takes place in the daytime. Okay. Now the whole reaction, this photosynthesis reaction is divided into two phases. Phases means two stages or two steps. The first step is called the light dependent phase, which means it requires light for that reaction. And the second is the light independent phase, also known as the dark phase, not because it takes place in the night, but just that it does not need light. So first phase requires light, second phase does not require light. Now let's see what's the first phase, the light dependent phase. It's also called photochemical phase. Photo means what? No, photo means light, right? Why do we call photo a photo? Is because it works with the help of light. Without light, you can't take a photo, right? Okay, so this first phase is the photochemical phase, which takes place in the presence of light. One very important question: where does this reaction take place? Takes place in the, what is thylakoids?
Openings on the margins of the leaves.
No, that was hydrathodes, Ryan. Thylakoids are those flat sacs inside the plastids, specifically the chloroplasts. There were those flat sacs that was called the thylakoids. When many, I mean, all the thylakoids together, what do you call them? Like the one stack of many,
Grana.
granum. Singular is granum, and plural of granum was grana. Okay, and these grana, they are attached to each other with the help of, yeah, what is that called? There's a name for that also. Picture is here.
Fret.
Yes, fret. Fret was those interconnecting bars. Okay. All right. So remember this. Where does this light dependent reaction take place? In the thylakoids. That is in the in those flat sacs. And let me tell you now itself, the light independent reaction takes place in the stroma. What is a stroma? The ground fluid. That is the remaining space around the thylakoids. That is where the light independent reaction takes place. Okay, light dependent takes place in the thylakoids, and the light independent takes place in the stroma. Now these two reactions take place immediately, like one after the other, like within 1,000th of a second. Dependent and independent take place in 1,000th of a second. Means if you take 1 second and divide it by 1,000 parts, in that much time gap it takes place. So it's very fast. There's no like, oh, in the after 1 minute. No, it's immediate. Okay, one after the other. So let's look at the first reaction, the light dependent phase. What happens here? So this takes place in two steps. Okay, let's move on. Now look here, everyone. So the first phase is called the light dependent phase, right? This light dependent phase happens in two steps. Okay, first phase is light dependent phase. Takes place in two steps. Step 1 and step 2. Step 1 is known as activation of chlorophyll. So that is when the light falls on this chlorophyll, they absorb the energy. Light comes in the form of small packets of energy called photons. Right? Photon. Have you heard of photon? Maybe not. Right? Photon is the smallest unit of light energy. So these photons are absorbed by the chlorophyll and they get activated. That is step 1, activation of chlorophyll. The second step is splitting of water. Okay, the water is H2O. It splits into three parts. It splits into hydrogen ions, it splits into oxygen molecule, and also 4 electrons. Okay, see, it's 2H2O. That means 2 molecules of water. So you have 4 hydrogen ions, right? 2H2. That's 4 hydrogen ions, O2. See, why we needed 2? Because one oxygen cannot form a molecule. It's not stable, right? You need 2 atoms of oxygen to form a stable molecule. So that's why two O's form O2. And then 4 electrons. How did these 4 electrons come? From where it came? The 4 hydrogen ions, they gave away 4 electrons. Each hydrogen ion gave away 1 electron. And that's why you have these 4 electrons. Okay. When the ions were formed, they gave out electrons. So these 4, they have 4 works. Okay. They do 4, I mean, these 3 of them, the 3 products that are formed. The hydrogen ions, the oxygen, and the electrons. Let's see what each of them do. The hydrogen ions, they go and join with a compound called NADP. Okay? The hydrogen ions, they join with NADP and forms what? NADPH. The hydrogen joins with NADP, so it becomes NADPH. Just remember that. So what is this NADP? NADP is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. Okay, that's a compound. And that compound turns into NADPH. Okay, so NADPH means the same thing with the hydrogen. All right. Second thing is the oxygen. What happens to the oxygen? So two of these oxygen atoms, they will join to form O2, and that oxygen is given out. That's part of the reaction here, this oxygen here. Okay, that's the oxygen that's given out. Very important thing. If they'll ask you sometimes, where did this oxygen form from? Was it formed from water or was it formed from the oxygen in carbon dioxide? Where do we get this oxygen from? From water. Okay, this oxygen that we're breathing, which the plant gives out, it is taken from water, not from carbon dioxide. See, both have oxygen, but it is not the oxygen from carbon dioxide. The oxygen from carbon dioxide is used where? Here, to produce the glucose, the food. Okay, all right, so keep that in mind. Yeah, and the third thing is this 4 electrons. What happens to these electrons? So electrons are energy rich. Okay, they give that energy. So, wait. Yeah. So what these 4 electrons are used for, it is used to convert ADP into ATP. So there is something called ADP, adenosine diphosphate. Di means what? 2. So there were 2 phosphate ions here. So with the help of the electrons, it adds one more phosphate. It's called a phosphate group. That phosphate group is added to ADP. And what does ADP become? It becomes ATP. ATP means triphosphate. So 2 phosphates added to 1 phosphate formed 3 phosphates, ATP. Okay, this was done with the help of those electrons. Okay, so we have seen what is the purpose of each of these products that we get from water. H2O splits into 3 things: hydrogen ions, oxygen, and electrons. What was the use of the hydrogen ions? Yeah, to convert NADP to NADPH. What was the oxygen used for? It was just given out for us to breathe. And what are the electrons used for? To convert ADP into ATP. See, ATP is that energy currency of the cell, right? When respiration takes place, energy is produced, and it is produced in this form, ATP. Now, this last process over here, where ADP became ATP, is also called as phosphorylation. Phosphorylation means addition of phosphate. Right, phosphate is getting added, right? So phosphorylation. And since it happened in the presence of light, we call it photophosphorylation. This reaction here, it's called what? Photophosphorylation. Okay, write down this. This is the whole light dependent reaction. Okay, done. Now, next is a light, what? Independent phase. Why is it called light independent phase? Aman? I didn't understand. But why is it called dark phase or light independent phase? Because it doesn't need light. Okay. Does it happen in the dark? No. Means nighttime? No, it's not happening in the nighttime. It's happening in the daytime itself, but it does not require light. Okay. Now, what is happening in this step is very easy. It is just that the glucose produced in the plant is getting converted into starch. See, glucose is a soluble sugar. The plant, during photosynthesis, it produces glucose. This glucose cannot be stored. It has to be used off immediately. And the plant doesn't need all the glucose. It uses very little bit of glucose for respiration. What does it do with the remaining glucose? It stores it for us to eat. Right? When we eat the fruits and vegetables, we get that food, the glucose. So the glucose that we get is not in the glucose form, it is in the starch form. So all glucose in the plant gets converted into starch, which is an insoluble form. You know what is potato made up of? It's fully starch. Okay. So the leaf of the potato plant prepared the glucose, and the glucose traveled through the phloem, went into the potato, and I mean, in the leaf itself, it got converted into starch because it has to happen in the leaf. This light independent phase is happening in the leaf. So it got converted into starch. And then the starch traveled through the phloem, went into the potato, and got stored over there. Is that clear? That's what happens for every plant. So some plants chain the glucose not into starch but into sucrose, which is cane sugar. It's a disaccharide or a double sugar, or sometimes it converts it into oils. So glucose can be converted into many forms. We saw three forms here. One is starch, which is the most common form of conversion. One is a disaccharide, a double sugar called sucrose, like cane sugar, sugar cane. It's sweet. It contains sucrose, which is not a very simple form of glucose, a double sugar called sucrose. And sometimes the glucose gets converted into oils, fats, like avocado. What is avocado made up of? What is the nutrient you get from avocados?
Fat.
It's fats, mostly fats. Okay, if you want fats from vegetarian food, you have to eat avocado. Or yeah, nuts and oils. But avocado has a lot of fats. Yeah, so it is the glucose that gets converted into these oils and fats. Okay, that's all that happens in light independent reaction. So here we can see a diagram of what happens in light dependent and in light independent reaction. So in light dependent, we see here water splits into oxygen, hydrogen, and these electrons. So electrons are used to convert what? Electrons are used to convert what? A, yeah, ATP into, sorry, ADP into ATP by addition of phosphate. Hydrogen is used to convert NADP into NADPH, and the oxygen is just given out. In the light, yeah, there's a little extra given over here. We can see that NADPH, it again gets converted back into NADP by releasing that oxygen as that hydrogen. That hydrogen is used to form the glucose from the carbon dioxide. Okay, carbon dioxide joins with this hydrogen. Which hydrogen? The hydrogen released from NADPH, and that forms the glucose. And then the glucose gets converted into starch. So all this is actually happening in the light independent phase. In your book, they did not write anything about carbon dioxide joining with NADPH, the H from that. But in the diagram, we can see that. Okay, is that clear? These two processes? Okay, now after this, no, it is all very just theoretical, which you can read and study. So you're learning about adaptations in leaf to perform photosynthesis. That is how, what adaptations the leaf has so that photosynthesis takes place well. For example, large surface area of leaf. The leaf has to be big, so then more light can absorb. How are the leaf arranged? They are not arranged one on top of the other. If they're arranged one on top of the other, what will happen? The shadow of one leaf will fall on the other leaf, and photosynthesis will not happen there. So the leaf has to be arranged in a certain way. Then the cuticle on top. Cuticle is that waxy layer. Is it transparent or opaque? It's opaque means the light won't go inside, no? It's transparent. What you see, the green color of the leaf is not the cuticle, it is the leaf. That means the cuticle is transparent, right? So it's made transparent so the light can pass through. Then stomata, there's a lot of stomata so that carbon dioxide can come in, oxygen can go out. So that will not limit the rate of photosynthesis. What if there were less stomata? And there's a lot of sunlight, it wants to perform photosynthesis, but less stomata, so no carbon dioxide oxygen transfer taking place. So the leaf has a lot of stomata, so that transfer takes place without any slowing down. Then leaves are thin. Thin means the light reaches every part of the leaf. If the leaf was thick, what will happen? The light will only reach the top parts. The inner parts will be dark. So leaf is made very thin. Then chloroplasts are more present where? On the upper surface, because that's where the light falls. See, these are all adaptations so that the photosynthesis takes place without any break. And one more is there, that is extensive vein system, so that water and food is transported fast. Especially water is transported to the leaf, so that again photosynthesis is not slowed down. Then end result of photosynthesis: glucose, water, oxygen. What are their purposes? Glucose can be converted into different forms that we saw before. Water is, what happens to the water? Most of this water is reutilized for photosynthesis. This water they're talking about is that 2%, not the 98%. The 98%, what happens to it? It's thrown out. Transpiration. It's not even used for photosynthesis. But the 2% of water that is used, this 2%, it again comes out as water, and that water is again reused for photosynthesis. Okay. Next, oxygen.
And if we pluck out the plant from its roots, does the plant die?
Yeah, it could absorb water.
Yeah, like if you just pluck it out from its root and put it on another place and water it, will it still be alive or is dead?
So what happens when you pluck a plant out of the ground is it breaks, all the root hairs break. Okay, and then when you plant it, the root hairs have to regrow. So if it's a tiny plant which absorbs less water, it will regrow, it will survive. It will be able to reproduce the root hairs and it will grow. But if you pull out a big plant which needs a lot of water and then you transplant it, it will die, because you have broken all the root hairs, and without root hairs, the roots cannot absorb water. And by the time new root hairs are formed, by the time the plant will already die, because it needs a lot of water to keep itself alive. Okay, so you can transplant small plants, not big plants. For transplanting a big plant, take it with the soil. You can't pull out the roots. It will break the root hairs. Okay, so and the last product formed in photosynthesis is oxygen, which is given out. The plant needs a very little bit of oxygen for respiration, but most of the oxygen is what? Given outside. Yeah, so about where is this glucose to starch conversion taking place and how is it transported? Okay, where is the conversion taking place? Glucose to starch? In the leaf itself. No, as soon as glucose is produced in the light independent reaction or phase, the glucose gets converted into starch. And then when does the starch go and get stored in the rest of the plant? Yeah, it can happen throughout the day, anytime, night, even day. I mean, day or even in the night, that starch gets translocated. Means it's moved from the leaf into another location in the plant. Could be to the roots, could be to the fruits or vegetables or any place. How much more is here? All right, I think that much is enough. We will see the factors affecting photosynthesis in the next class. So till here, what we saw today mainly is the light dependent and the light independent reaction. What happens to each of the products, why they're used, and all that. In the last class, we saw the difference between light reaction and dark reaction. And we saw what are the end products, how they are used, how they are utilized. The next topic is factors affecting photosynthesis. Okay, when does photosynthesis increase or when does it decrease? So there are some external factors, means outside the plant, and there are internal factors, that is inside the plant. The external factors affecting photosynthesis are light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration, temperature, and water content. So how does light intensity affect photosynthesis?
More the light, more the photosynthesis.
Yes, because photosynthesis only takes place in the presence of light, right? So the more the light, the more the photosynthesis. But it's not true completely. I mean, it's only true to a certain extent. See, photosynthesis increases with the light intensity up to only a certain limit, and then it gets stabilized at the point S1 in this. There's a graph over here. Okay, see, at a certain light intensity, only till that certain light intensity, photosynthesis rate of photosynthesis will increase. After that, even if you increase the light, photosynthesis will not increase. Okay, it comes to a max point and then increase. But then at that certain point, if you increase carbon dioxide concentration, then again photosynthesis will increase till another point and then it will stabilize over there. So they work together, okay? Light and carbon dioxide together. Look at this diagram over here. So you can see as you're increasing the light, photosynthesis rate of photosynthesis is also increasing, but it is only increasing till a certain point when the concentration of carbon dioxide is 0.02%. Then if you increase the concentration of carbon dioxide in the air to 0.05%, then there will again be an increase in the rate of photosynthesis as you increase the light intensity. Then that also will stabilize at a certain point. Yeah. Okay. Basically what? If the carbon dioxide is 0.02%, rate of photosynthesis will increase as long as you increase light, photosynthesis also will increase, but till a certain point. Then how much ever light you give, it will not increase the rate of photosynthesis. But now if the air has more carbon dioxide, then if you increase light, again rate of photosynthesis will also increase. But again till a certain point, and then it stops. Then whether you increase light or whether you increase the carbon dioxide, rate of photosynthesis will not increase. Okay. All right. So those were together. The first and second point were together. The next one is the temperature. How does temperature affect photosynthesis? So they tried out different experiments and saw that for every 10 degrees rise in the temperature, the rate of photosynthesis will double. Yeah, that means from 20 to 30 degrees, if you increase, then rate of photosynthesis will double. What do you mean by rate of photosynthesis? Speed, the speed of photosynthesis. Okay, means how much carbon dioxide and food is produced in a certain amount of time. Now this doubling of rate of photosynthesis will only increase till the temperature is 35 degrees Celsius. After 35 degrees Celsius, even if you increase the temperature, rate of photosynthesis will not increase. In fact, if the temperature goes above 40 degrees Celsius, rate of photosynthesis will decrease because it's too much temperature. Yeah, the enzymes get destroyed and rate of photosynthesis will decrease. Is that clear about temperature? Yes. So for every 10 degree rise in temperature, rate of photosynthesis will double. But this only happens till which temperature? Too much time. What? No. 35. After 35 till 40, there is no increase. It stays stable. After 40, what happens to rate of photosynthesis? It decreases. Okay. All right. Last one is water content. Now, water content is something we don't need to talk about because see, out of all the water that the plant is absorbing, how much of the water is being used? 1%. Yeah, 1 to 2%. So that's a very less amount of water which is required. So generally, the plant does not have any effect on rate of photosynthesis because there's a lot of water present in the plant. Okay, but in case there's scarcity of water, like a plant in the desert where there's no water at all and it doesn't have any water at all to absorb, then what will happen? Then you will see a decrease in rate of photosynthesis. And yes, the plant also, it controls, like if there's less water outside, then it closes its stomata and does not allow the water to get evaporated. Right? It keeps the water so that it photosynthesis can take place. Okay, read through the internal factors. 1 minute. See what are the internal factors. Okay, what's the first internal factor? Chlorophyll, right? If a plant doesn't have chlorophyll, will photosynthesis take place? No. So is it possible, like, does it happen that the plant does not have chlorophyll? There are cases, if there's nutritional deficiencies, like for chlorophyll to be produced also, the plant needs certain nutrients. And if the plant is not getting those nutrients, no chlorophyll. And if no chlorophyll, then no photosynthesis. Next is protoplasm. What is protoplasm? Everything inside the cell is called protoplasm. That is cytoplasm plus nucleus is called the protoplasm. So if the protoplasm gets dehydrated, if there is some reason, dehydration of the protoplasm can reduce rate of photosynthesis. Similarly, the accumulation of carbohydrates, that is sugar and starch, also reduces the rate of photosynthesis. See, carbohydrates and starch, those are the glucose is converted into starch. That should not get stored inside the protoplasm. It should be transferred to different parts of the plant. But in case it is not transferred and it stays within the protoplasm, then that also decreases the rate of photosynthesis. Structure of the leaf also influences the amount of carbon dioxide entering in, the amount of light passing through and all that, and that can also play a part in the rate of photosynthesis. Normally cuticle is transparent so that light passes through, but if the cuticle is too thick, then carbon dioxide will not be able to enter into the leaf as easily, so that could reduce the rate of photosynthesis. Does photosynthesis happen at night? Okay, so there are some plants which perform photosynthesis even in the night, but they use a different technology. It's called the CAM pathway. So you don't study about that, but that is without the presence of light, it is able to perform photosynthesis. Okay, and then lastly, you have so many experiments. Okay, experiments are very important in your exam because they will just give you a diagram like this and they'll ask you questions based on that. So you need to study the experiment in and out, like completely you need to know what it is, okay? So first experiment is to test a leaf for starch. Now you've heard of the iodine. Iodine is used to test the presence of starch. If starch is present, suppose you take a leaf, you put iodine in it. If starch is present, then what color will the leaf turn into? Blue-black. And if there is no starch, then it will be pale, like light brown color. Okay, so that color helps you to determine whether there is starch or not. So let's read through this, that to test a leaf if it has starch or not. First is dip the leaf in boiling water for a minute to kill the cells. Then boil the leaf in methylated spirit over a water bath till it becomes pale white due to the removal of chlorophyll. The leaf now becomes hard and brittle. So two things we have done to the leaf. First thing what we did is
Boiled in hot water.
so we killed the leaf, but starch is still there because it was formed before we killed the leaf. Then to remove then to remove chlorophyll, what they're doing?
Boiled the leaf in
Methylated spirit. So it's like this. In a test tube, you take methylated spirit, put the leaf inside that, and then put the test tube inside boiling water. So you're not directly boiling the spirit. Okay, so this is called a water bath. When you have a liquid inside another liquid. Next, place it again in hot water to soften it because it became hard. So you soften it by putting it in hot water. Then spread the leaf in a dish and pour iodine solution on it. The presence of starch will be indicated by a blue-black color. A leaf without starch will show brown coloration. So how is there starch? See, when we kill the leaf, what did we kill? The cells and everything of the leaf. But starch is still there. Because we're not removing the starch. And here what we're destroying is chlorophyll. If chlorophyll is not there, then no new starch can be produced. Right. So whatever starch was there is still there in the leaf. Then when you pour iodine on it, if the starch is there, it will be blue-black. If there's no starch, it will become brown. Okay. So that is not an experiment. That is just the general method you're going to use in every experiment. You're going to do this. You're going to not destarch. You're going to kill the leaf and you're going to remove the chlorophyll. How do you kill the leaf?
by boiling.
Boiling it. Methylated spirit over boiling water. Right? How do you wait? No. Dip the leaf in boiling water. That's how you kill the leaf. How do you remove the chlorophyll is by using methylated spirit, dipping it in boiling water. Okay. Okay, so let's see the first one. To show that chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis. To show that chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis. Okay, so let's read through it. Take a plant with variegated leaves. Variegated leaf means a leaf which is partly green and partly not green. So something like this. So only the green parts of the leaf will have chlorophyll. The non-green parts will not have chlorophyll. Have you seen like these leaves? But this is before the treatment and this is after the treatment. Whatever it is, a leaf which is part green and part blue or part red or something like that. Like, they have these designer plants which look very beautiful because the leaves have different colors in it. You've seen like these plants? Yeah. So that's a plant called with variegated leaves. Okay. Now destarch the leaf. How do you destarch it? Placing it in a dark room for a few days. So when it is in the dark room, there is no light, there's no photosynthesis, the plant is not producing glucose, there is no food. Okay, just rejoin the meeting, Ryan and Sneha. See, this variegated leaf is only green in certain parts. And the other part, what color it is? White or some other color. Now, where does photosynthesis take place?
Only in the green.
Only in the green parts. Now, my second question, where is the starch present? Only in the green parts or in the whole leaf? No, in the whole leaf. Because, see, it was produced in the green parts, but then the starch transported to all other parts of the plant. Okay, in a normal leaf, even if it is green only in the center, the starch is present everywhere. Is that clear? Now, when we destarch the leaf, destarch means put the leaf in darkness. That time there will be no starch present in the leaf at all. The whole leaf will be without starch. Then you take the leaf and put in the sun. Now, only the green parts photosynthesis will take place, and so the starch will be only in the green parts now. Did you understand?
Yes.
Okay. So then if you test the leaf for starch by putting iodine solution, only these green parts will become blue-black. And the white parts will be brown. What if you did the same experiment but did not put the leaf in the dark? You directly took iodine and put on the leaf, on this variegated leaf. Which part of the leaf will turn green? The whole leaf, because there's starch everywhere. Right? But when we place it in the dark, we are destarching the leaf, removing all the starch. And then when we place it in the sun, you're only allowing the green parts to get starch. Then when you test it with starch, with iodine, you see that only the green parts have turned blue-black. A similar experiment is done here also. First, this is to test that, to show that sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis. First step, destarch the leaf, remove all the starch, then put a paper like this over the leaf and put the leaf back in the sun. Now, only the parts that is exposed to the sunlight will produce glucose and starch will be present over there. The part that you had covered it, there will be no glucose over there, no starch. And so if you test the presence of starch using iodine, that part will be brown. The rest of the leaf which was exposed to the sunlight will turn blue-black. Is that clear, everyone? Before any experiment for starch, you have to destarch the leaf. Because if you don't, then starch is present everywhere in the leaf, even places where you don't want. Even in these dark parts, or even in the parts where there is no chlorophyll, there is starch over there. Is that clear or not, Aman? Okay. All right. So we'll stop with that. Please study this much, and just a few more experiments are there. And there is one small topic at the end. What is that? Carbon cycle. Okay, we'll see that. All right. Okay, so in the last class, we saw two experiments. Before doing any of the experiments, what we always do is we destarch the leaf. How do we destarch the leaf? Okay, see, if you boil it, you kill the leaf. Iodine is to test for the presence of starch. How do you destarch a leaf? Place it in a dark room. If you place it in a dark room, then there's no light, so no photosynthesis. So there is no glucose produced, there is no starch formed. And whatever starch is present on the leaf will get used up. And so that's how you destarch a leaf. Okay. How do you kill a leaf? Boil it. Once you boil it, how do you remove the chlorophyll? This one, dipping it in methylated spirit and putting it in a water bath. Okay, so what we were saying, how do you destarch a leaf? Keeping it in a dark room. How do you kill a leaf? Boiling it. How do you destroy the chlorophyll? Yeah, put it in methylated spirit and boil. Don't boil the methylated spirit. Put the methylated spirit in boiling water. Okay. All right. Now, before you do any of these experiments, whether it is to test starch or to test photosynthesis or to test anything, you always have to destarch the leaf. How do you destarch it again? Placing it in a dark room. Okay. What will happen if you don't destarch the leaf is the whole leaf will be filled with starch. Suppose even if you take a leaf like this, what do you call this leaf? Variegated leaf. Variegated leaf is green only in the green parts. I mean, okay, variegated leaf is green only in certain parts, right? So only there chlorophyll is present and there only glucose is produced. But the glucose that is produced in those green parts is spread around throughout the leaf. And so the whole leaf has that glucose, which gets converted to starch. So if we want to test the presence of uh, starch only at these green parts, then we have to first destarch the leaf so that the starch is completely removed from the leaf. Then you place the leaf back in the sun. Then only the green parts will get starch. The rest of the parts that is not green will not have starch in it. Okay. All right. For sunlight also, we destarch the leaf and then we covered certain parts of the leaf, and the parts that were covered will not have any glucose, no starch. All right, next is to show that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. Okay, how do you show that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis? If there's no carbon dioxide, then there's no photosynthesis, right? So if you just cut off all the carbon dioxide, then no photosynthesis will take place. If no photosynthesis takes place, no food is produced, no starch is present. So that's what we're going to do, right? To test whether carbon dioxide is needed, you just check if starch is present in the leaf or not. Like remove the carbon dioxide and check if starch. So first you always have to destarch the leaf again. Otherwise, there is already starch in the leaf. Even if you cut off the glucose, sorry, even if you cut off the carbon dioxide, there is still starch present. All right. So first thing is destarch the leaf. Now to remove the carbon dioxide, we use potassium hydroxide. What is the formula for potassium hydroxide?
KOH.
KOH. So KOH has this property that it absorbs carbon dioxide. Okay, see the leaf, they took part of the leaf, placed it inside a conical flask, sealed it so that outside air doesn't go inside. And inside the conical flask, they put potassium hydroxide. So whatever carbon dioxide is over there is removed. So now this leaf, it gets sunlight because the glass is transparent. So sunlight goes in, but since there's no carbon dioxide, what's not there? No photosynthesis. And if there's no photosynthesis, then there's no food, no starch. And so when you check that presence of starch, what is this color? Blue black, right? So that the leaf that is outside the flask, that turns blue black when you put iodine. And the part that is inside will turn, what is this color? Green. It's supposed to be pale, no? Huh? What?
Brownish.
Yeah, it's supposed to be brown, right? They put green. No, I thought I couldn't see it, but it's green only, right? Okay, so the part that is inside, there is no food produced, so that will be pale brown in color. Okay, next is to show that oxygen is produced during photosynthesis. So they're taking a small plant called hydrilla. It's a very common plant that is used in any experiment in biology. Okay, hydrilla. Look at the diagram and see if you're able to understand. So initially this test tube was filled with water. There was no gas on top at all. It was completely filled with water. But when you leave it like this for some time in the presence of sunlight, photosynthesis takes place and produces oxygen. That oxygen gets collected. See, tiny bubbles are formed and those bubbles are forming on top. This oxygen cannot go from outside. There's no way that the oxygen from air can go inside like that, right? So the oxygen formed here is from the hydrilla. It's released from the hydrilla. I'm just giving in short. Read all the experiments and learn it correctly step by step. Okay. Next is the importance of photosynthesis, which we already, I don't know, we have seen, but it is simple, right? What are the products formed in photosynthesis? Glucose, oxygen. Water is the same water, but yeah, water is also there. So glucose, why is glucose important? Food, right? Not only for the plant. All living things, animals, every animal on this earth, they depend on plants for food. Okay, so here there's a food chain. You can see so many chains. Even a tiger depends on plants. Why? Because a tiger depends on a rabbit, which depends on grass. Mosquito also depends on plants. How? Because mosquito depends on whom? Man, it takes the blood from us, and we depend on plants like wheat. Okay, so every animal on this earth depends on plants directly or indirectly. Directly, if you're a herbivore or a vegetarian. Indirectly, if you're a carnivore or a non-vegetarian. Do fungi and bacteria also depend on plants? Yeah, fungi, they grow on dead, decaying plant or animal. So they depend on plant or animal which depends on a plant. What about bacteria? Same. Bacteria also grows where there is decaying substances. Bacteria grows over there. All right. The second thing given out in photosynthesis is oxygen. So again, oxygen is very important for any life on Earth. Not only for life, but also for burning. Right. Without oxygen, nothing can burn. Can hydrogen burn in the absence of oxygen? You know, hydrogen is flammable, inflammable. Does it burn without oxygen? Or is oxygen needed for hydrogen also to burn? Yeah, I think for hydrogen also to burn, oxygen is needed. Let's just confirm that. Does, let's ask, can hydrogen burn in the absence of oxygen? No, hydrogen cannot burn in the absence of oxygen. So even for hydrogen to burn, hydrogen is the most inflammable gas. But for that also you need oxygen. Okay, the last topic here is a carbon cycle. So where is carbon present? Do we need carbon? Do we give out carbon? Where is carbon? We are made of carbon. We eat carbon. We breathe out carbon. Yes? We are made of carbon because every cell in our body has carbon in it. What do we eat? What are the nutrients we eat? Glucose, fats, proteins, all of them have carbon in it. Right? So the food we eat has carbon, and the air that we breathe out has carbon in the form of carbon dioxide. Okay, so yes, carbon enters into our body through food and exits our body when we breathe out. You look at this carbon cycle. What do you understand from this? Let's start from the top over here. So this is the carbon dioxide in the air. How much of the air has carbon dioxide? 0.03%. So that carbon dioxide gets used up in photosynthesis. And yeah, so producers, that is green plants, contain this carbon because that food is stored over here. If an animal eats the plant, that carbon enters into the animal. Then if a decomposer, if the animal or plant dies, then the decomposer will consume that carbon. It enters into them. From all these three, when they decay or die, when they decay or when they, if you burn them or when they respire, they give out carbon dioxide. See, three ways carbon dioxide is produced. Either respiration, all of them respire, they give out carbon dioxide, or decay. Decay means when they are dead, the bacteria will release that carbon dioxide. Or when they burn, if you burn any of this, carbon dioxide is produced. So that's how carbon dioxide goes back into the air. On the other side, you can see fossilization. So if they become fossils, they turn into fossil fuels, which contains carbon, coal, petroleum, or CNG, that's natural gas. See, coal, oil means petroleum, and gas means natural gas. These are the three fossil fuels. They all contain carbon. Even limestone is made up of carbon. Limestone is also found under the earth. Now, when any of these fossil fuels are burned, it turns back into carbon dioxide. Or limestone, if you heat it or burn the limestone, it again turns back into carbon dioxide. Okay, so you can see the cycle. Is the diagram clear, everyone? So now let's see the points here. First is photosynthesis, that is green plants, they use up the carbon dioxide. See, photosynthesis is the only process by which carbon dioxide gets converted into something else. Photosynthesis is the only process where carbon dioxide is used up to convert it into oxygen. All of these other things, they produce carbon dioxide. So that's why photosynthesis is so important, because it is converting the carbon dioxide into some useful substance like oxygen and glucose. Okay, so then food chains, through food chains, you can see the carbon passes on from person to person or animal to plant or plant to animal. Then respiration, when you breathe, what's happening? When you breathe, that is respiration, glucose gets converted into carbon dioxide. Right? Decay, when anything decays, carbon dioxide is released. When anything is burnt, carbon dioxide is released. When you heat limestone, carbon dioxide is released. Okay, so only one place, only photosynthesis is using up the carbon dioxide. All the other things are releasing carbon dioxide. Okay. Is that clear? Chapter is done. Okay, read through this chapter, study this. By the way, reminding you,